Keith's got his camera on.
Oh, it's hideous.
Oh, God. My screen just broke.
Blah. Blah.
We'll launch in and go and then just start and go.
Wait, do we start and go, or do we go and then start?
I think I'll start and
Listen.
go, and then you go and start.
Smell something?
On to your butts.
The battle of wits has begun.
Take your
Life,
sticking paws off me,
finds a way.
damn dirty ape!
Hello there.
This is Sparta!
You're a wizard.
Yes, they deserve to shine. I hope they burn in hell!
Take a big step back and literally
Fuck your own face!
Do or do not. There is no try.
Beetlejuice.
You ever dance with the devil in the pale?
I'm your huckleberry.
Beetlejuice.
Thinking what I'm thinking about.
Hallelujah!
Aim for the bushes.
Holy shit!
That doesn't make sense.
Where's the
I
Tylenol?
believe the common denominator of the universe is not harmony, but chaos, hostility, and murder.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the show. This is episode 2 of Pop Culture Kick. My name is Nick, also known as Nickzilla. I have with me my co-hosts. We've got Mark and Keith. Guys, what do you guys say?
Yo, what up?
Yo, what's up, guys?
All right, short and sweet. All right, so here we go. So today we're going to talk about
Here we go.
late timing. I said go and start, and you said start and go. I see
No,
what you did there.
I'm gonna start and go now.
Okay, all right, we're going and starting. So
Wait,
we
I
got,
haven't started yet.
oh, well, I already went and go. So is it go and start or start and go?
Nobody said anything about went.
Oh my God, Grendel Liquor. We each picked a movie to watch. Oh my God, that picture's hideous. I know you guys can't see it who are listening, but
Oh my god, it's
we can see
terrifying.
Keith's forehead.
Hey, why don't you put on your cameras?
I don't have a camera for good reason.
Yeah, I don't have a camera hooked up to this computer. I don't want people seeing what I do with my debaucherous self. All right, let's see. If you guys listened to the first episode, we have mandated what Keith's going to be watching because this jackass has not watched the Spider-Man movies over the course of the last 15 years.
Garbage.
All right, so check it out. All right, I've been slacking.
Garbage human
I
being.
saw the first one, and the first one when it first came out, and
But
then
in 8 million other people. Okay, go ahead.
yeah, come to find out that was like 2002,
Yeah, I was about to say that was almost 20 years ago.
right? Last night we watched the second one, and I remember that one. So apparently I've seen the first and second, but after that I just lost it. I lost everything. I lost track of all.
So you're 2 for 8
2 for 8, apparently. Yeah. What?
in 20 goddamn
But
years.
That's a quarter of them.
In 20 years, you've had only 8 movies to watch, and you've only watched 2.
And you've only watched 2.
Oh my God.
In my defense,
Well, Spider-Man 3 was not that good. I mean, yeah, you still need to watch it, but it was.
It is referenced in No Way Home, so you do have to watch it.
okay, all right.
All right, back to what I was saying. Keith's been mandated. So for the next few episodes, he's going to be talking about Spider-Man movies because that is all we allow him to watch until he
likes
gets
to go
caught up.
on a lot of mandates.
So, Keith, why don't you go first and you give us a rundown of Spider-Man 1, the original Spider-Man from 20 years ago. What'd you think about it? What'd you like? What didn't you like? Give us your review.
All right, let me bust out my notes. All right, so for the first one, love the movie. I really think Willem Dafoe stole the show. Just like Val Kilmer did in Tombstone, Willem Dafoe was the star of the first Spider-Man. He rocked it.
I agree. He didn't even have to put on a helmet to look like the Goblin.
That's true. But yes, he is a phenomenal actor.
Yeah, I mean, he outclassed everybody. But as far as the movie goes, I really felt like it fast forwarded through all the important scenes. You know, why Harry hated Spider-Man. You know, he killed Norman, but the hatred only shows in like a 5-second clip throughout the whole movie.
Fucking spoiler alert.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it in 20
movie's
years,
been out in 20 years. Okay, come on now.
if you haven't seen it in 20 years, just take your TV and throw it out the back door, okay?
Don't be like me.
Don't be a Keith.
So yeah, that really bothered me. It felt like it progressed through the important scenes that you need to know for. Is it the Spider Verse? Is that what it's called?
The
The
multiverse.
multiverse.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Spider Verse and
multiverse or
multiverse.
Spider Verse, they're kind of interchangeable.
I feel like the first one fast forwarded through all the important parts and just kind of led you to be like, okay, well, I'll put a check in that and try to remember that later.
I agree. And when they made this, that wasn't a thing. So I think they did very well with it.
I will say, CGI looked pretty good for 2002.
Yeah, not bad. It still kind of holds up.
Oh yeah, no doubt. It was for being like one of the first Marvel movies. Marvel had other movies. Dating all the way back to 1989. They had the Punisher movie, right? And then they had those terrible Fantastic Four, and
Dude,
I think
those were so bad.
I think there was a Spider-Man movie also in the 90s, something like that. That were just most of them were
Yeah,
never even
well, I mean,
released.
everybody forgets about the Blade trilogy too, and fucking Daredevil and Elektra and all that shit.
Did that take part in the same universe?
It
No.
will. It's going to, because Disney right now is talking to Wesley Snipes to bring in his version of Blade into the multiverse. I think they're going to use that.
They're gonna bring Ben Affleck back for Daredevil.
I don't know if they're going to get it, but they are, and this was something I was going to talk about later, but yeah, there was like a fake leaked credit scene for the Doctor Strange, and it said Ben Affleck, Matt Murdock, Wesley Snipes Blade, and I have a feeling that they're going to use that Blade to introduce Mahershala Ali, to introduce the new, because he's the new Blade. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
that makes sense.
The 90s, well, Blade's more of like a late 90s, but that was probably the best of the Marvel movies, those Blade ones, until you got to Spider-Man.
Yep. Well, I don't know.
Uh,
I still think that the Blade movies were better than the original Spider-Man trilogy, but that's just my opinion.
Well, it's definitely more adult and older. Out of the original Spider-Man trilogy, and Keith, we'll let you get back to your 20-year-old review.
Eventually.
I got my notes.
The Blade, to me, more adult. I love the Blade movies. That first one, some motherfuckers always trying to ice skate uphill. Like, just the quotes and the shit they do. It's
Yeah.
it's so badass and iconic. In Spider-Man, the original trilogy, Spider-Man 2 was my favorite. But yeah, Blade was legit. And I like the '89 Punisher with Dolph Lundgren.
Dolph
Dude,
Lundgren,
that's a classic '80s, just freaking, it was violent as hell.
Or you remember the made for TV movie, the Nick Fury?
Yeah, with Hasselhoff. Yeah, dude, that introduced a lot of stuff to Marvel for the first time. Could you imagine if Hasselhoff shows up as Nick Fury in the multiverse? Holy shit! All right, Keith, go ahead. Keep going.
Yeah, get back to your Spider fans.
We'll try not to make this 2 hours.
All right, so my next note in here goes back to Mary Jane. Seems like she's just running through everybody else and then settles on Peter Parker.
Yep.
Is that not what's happening?
What's the saying? Nice guys finish last.
Oh, fucking fact on that one. So I saw that and I was just like, you got to be kidding me, right?
I agree. My issue with and Kirsten Dunst could have been a great Mary Jane, but my issue with their version of Mary Jane, you didn't see the love, right? The whole story is about how those two love each other so heavily. It seemed like she was always looking for a reason to get out of it, type thing.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, they got married in the comic books eventually, and then he ended up actually like killing Mary Jane with his mutation and everything, and yeah, there was no chemistry between Kirsten Dunst and Tobey Maguire in the first place. That was kind of one of the things that really ruined that.
that kiss scene upside down that's like iconic now. Like even that, she's kissing Spider-Man, and she's like, I want Spider-Man. I want,
Man, I
everybody
was
else.
watching it. I was watching. I was like, is she just kissing everybody, trying to get that same kiss?
Yeah, it just I did not feel the love. How's that song go? From Lion King.
Lion King.
Yeah. I did not feel that song playing in my head watching her and Tobey Maguire in that trilogy.
Yeah, now you just threw an earworm up. Now everybody's gonna hear that in their head all day.
I hope every time someone watches that, they're like, "You're right. Lion King song is not playing in my head."
My last note for that movie is, I understand it's Marvel, but this came out before the MCU. Obviously, the MCU still existed, but there were no movies in it. So, where does this fall in line in it? Because there's no after credit scene like there is in every other Marvel movie.
Well, it's a different universe, right? It's the multiverse. So that our MCU universe is Tom Holland's Spider-Man. That is Earth Prime, Earth 1, whatever the Earth number is they assign to it. That's our main one, which means this takes place in a different universe, essentially. Same thing with the Andrew Garfield ones, right? Those are not our mains. That's how they're able to bring them in.
Yeah.
So it's taking place at the same time as our Tom Holland ones, or a little earlier, but it's not.
Probably several years earlier because I mean, if you go back to No Way Home, you know, Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker is quite a bit older.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. It's been years, so
Like it's
either
probably been a
way,
couple decades, maybe a decade at least, if not more.
yeah, that's true. So yeah, I mean it's just not in our universe. So those events have nothing to do with anything in the MCU because it was all pre-Disney.
Okay. So we ended up watching Spider-Man 2 last night, or 2.1 with the extended scenes or whatever. And I really enjoyed that one too. I don't know if you guys noticed it when you guys watched it, but there was a nod to Doctor Strange in that movie. And I guess that kind of sets up the MCU.
Well, again, that movie was made prior to Disney.
Right. But wait, so this was what, Sony?
Yeah, yeah. All the Spider-Man movies are Sony films, backed by Disney. Now, but those back then was just Sony or Columbia or one of them, But Sony owns Spider-Man.
Yeah, so during like the late 90s, kind of early 2000s, Marvel was losing a lot of money. They were almost about to go bankrupt until they started selling off film licensing rights to studios. And so Sony ended up snapping up Spider-Man and
His whole gallery. They
yeah,
bought all the Spider-Man rights. Like people don't understand. Marvel was like a year away from going away. There'd be no comic books of Marvel anymore. Nothing. They were that close to going out. They sold, like, Universal owns the Hulk. Marvel and Disney now has been trying to buy back all the rights for all the different characters. And you want to see how complicated it gets, right? I was at Universal Studios yesterday, and at Islands of Adventure, they have the Island of Marvel, right? But Disney owns Marvel. Universal has the rights to the comic book characters. And so there's the whole theme park there. The Marvel one is all comic book character. So it's
That
got like
just sounds overcomplicated.
it is, but
Extremely overcomplicated.
it's
yeah,
cool.
licensing rights and agreements and stuff like that can get pretty complicated when it comes to that.
It's cool though because I prefer the comic book characters versus the movie characters on most of them. So you go in and they've got
Yeah,
like
same here.
30-foot tall Wolverine, right? But it's the one from the comic pages. They got the Fantastic Four cafe, and it's the comic book Fantastic Four. They have all the MCU characters. They got Doctor Octopus there, but it's the one with the bowl cut and the orange and yellow outfit, right? So it's all the comic book.
Yeah.
But Disney owns the rights to the characters, but they don't own the Universal bought the rights to the comic book characters for their park. It's crazy, crazy complicated. But yeah, Sony owns all the Spider-Man and Spider-Man
And
villains.
And 20th Century Fox owns the X-Men.
The mutants part of it. They own all the mutants. Which now Disney bought Fox, so now they own they got all that back. Which is why we're going to start seeing, I think the next Captain Marvel will probably have introduced Rogue, right? Because that's how she gets her powers.
Yeah, by taking
So
over from Captain Marvel. Yeah, makes sense.
I'm thinking, that this and this whole multiverse is how we're going to get the X-Men in. I think this is how we're going to get them.
Yeah, I can see that. That would be a smart play on Disney's part.
But anyway, Keith, what was the Doctor Strange nod? Because yeah, back then they wanted to create a bigger universe. They just didn't have the money to do it. So all they could do is throw nods. Like Sam Raimi made all the movies, right? So you got Bruce Campbell plays a cameo in each movie because he always plays a cameo somewhere in Sam Raimi's movies.
Yeah, so in this one, when they're trying to find out a name for Dr. Octopus, they called him Dr. Strange. And he said, oh, what's the guy's name? What's the State Farm guy? What's his name?
J.K. Simmons.
You talking about Perry
Yes,
White?
Yeah, the guy that's like, we know a thing or two because we've done that.
Well, yeah, the Perry White is the lead guy at the Daily Bugle. The guy that's
he
yelling.
goes,
Yeah.
One of his cronies or whatever is like, why don't we call him Doctor Strange? And he says, no, that's taken. How about Dr. Octopus? I was like, oh,
Yeah,
I recognize that.
That's that meme of Leonardo DiCaprio where he's like, hey, and he's snapping, he's pointing. Go ahead, Keith. If you finish part 2, let's knock out both movies real quick.
Yeah, so the second one, in my mind, a little better than the first one. You had the hatred for Spider-Man from Harry Osborn. That didn't really shine through. Even when Spider-Man was captured on his couch, he had the knife and everything. Still didn't kill him. If you hate somebody that much, what's going on with that?
I think the hate was just
manufactured.
Yeah, I mean, because he hated his dad too, so it was like I have to be angry because he killed him, and honestly, I really don't care because now I have this empire.
Exactly.
Yeah, and he had all the technology and all the money and all that crap anyway. So when his dad's gone, he has control of all that. So did he really hate Spider-Man that much for doing all that basically for him?
Well, and he grew up hating, so now he doesn't have his dad to hate, so he needs to put that onto somebody else, right? He's got to be that brooding character and have something to hate.
Yeah.
So it makes sense.
So that whole movie, I'm thinking in the back of my mind, I'm like cheering on. Come on, Hobgoblin. Come on, Hobgoblin. Where are you at? Where are you at? Nowhere. This movie was all about Dr. Octopus. And then the last scene is when Harry finds all the Green Goblin stuff.
And he doesn't even become Hobgoblin. He becomes the new Goblin, right? Because Ned is the one who becomes Hobgoblin, which is you haven't seen the new movies, but Mark knows
who is Ned?
You'll see in the next movies. Well, no. You'll see 3 movies from now.
I'm thinking Ned Flanders over here.
Nah. Ned was Peter Parker's friend who becomes
he's like his best friend.
Which in the Tom Holland trilogy, Peter Parker has a best friend named Ned, and in the last one you didn't see, but Mark did. He says, "I'll never betray you," because all the Spider-Mans had their best friend like betray them, type thing. So, yeah, you'll see, it's coming. Tom Holland's in talks right now for like one of the biggest deals it'll be the biggest deal of his life, but one of the biggest deals in Hollywood right now to star in 6 more movies, 2 more trilogies.
That's quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm thinking this is going to be like $1 billion deal for this kid, right? Because they want him. Spider-Man movies, this last one almost took out. Did it take out or almost took out Endgame? Like money.
Let me check Box Office Mojo to see what they're earning.
Honestly, I think it's over. I think it's more than Endgame.
And we're talking about a time when theaters are still struggling to hit 50% occupancy, right? And
I'm just waiting for
this
that
movie
stock to
made,
go back up.
oh my God, this movie just destroyed the box office.
So domestically, it did 727 million. Internationally, 970. So it totals up to almost 1.7 billion.
And I think Endgame hit 2, didn't it?
Let me check right now.
Either way, that's a lot of damn money. If they're talking about this massive deal for Tom Holland for 6 more movies, paying him $1 billion or 900 million or whatever for the next 6 movies, that's nothing because each of those movies is going to be crazy because the next trilogy they're talking about is going to be we're going to see Hobgoblin, we're going to see more deeper into his rogues gallery type thing.
So domestically, Avengers Endgame did 858 million. Internationally, it did 1.9 billion. So it almost made 2 billion just off of the international. So worldwide, 2.7 to almost 2.8 billion dollars for Avengers Endgame.
That's insane.
2.8 or 1.8?
2.8.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That movie made a ton of
That's
money.
insane.
Yeah, it took out, I think, Avatar and Titanic is like the highest
But
grossing
like I
movie.
said,
Isn't
internationally, it almost made $2 billion.
isn't Avatar 2 supposed
Yeah.
to come out this year?
Yeah, at the end of the year. They filmed like the next 4 movies together, and that's why it's taken so long to get them all done because he's doing them all at one time.
All the avatars.
Yeah, there's like 5 of them.
I had no idea.
Yeah, he he developed the technology to film underwater and do some stuff underwater. Like that's why he did that whole like submarine stuff with the
Yeah, well,
Titanic and other
he
things.
developed that one camera for Titanic too to be able to actually go down and shoot actual footage of the Titanic.
He's also the one that developed that 3D camera. Why we have 3D films the way we do, because he developed it for the first
Yeah,
Avatar.
we
Right?
could do a
It
whole
wasn't
episode on James Cameron alone.
no shit, dude. That guy just the amount that he's brought to the movie industry just by creating technology. Either way, what we can do that. Let's pencil that in for a day of just we can do a Spielberg and James Cameron back to back day or something because both of them are just pioneers with it. But so Spider-Man 2, Keith, it was my favorite of that trilogy, and I agree. The weakest part of that, there's 2 weak parts, but the Mary Jane stuff again just felt forced. It did not feel natural.
This one felt worse than the first.
Yeah, and he has that like existential crisis or whatever where he can't like get it
that
up
whole
essentially.
movie, I'm just
He needed a spider Cialis. He gave him a spider blue pill.
that whole movie, I'm just like, the dude lost his mojo. Like, man up, just do what you got to do, right?
But yeah, the Mary Jane stuff did not feel good, and then the stuff with him and Harry just it wasn't it just didn't flow very well. The best parts were him and Doc Ock. Like the fights were good. Doc Ock looked great, and
Yes.
the whole chip burning out, so the arms were in control. The computer essentially was running. It was all just noise in his head. He was doing whatever he could to try to stop it, and if that's like stealing and robbing or whatever he had to do to get the means to fix it, right? So it was tragic essentially.
Yes. Yep. I agree. The love part or the alternate plot of that movie killed it in my mind. The Spider-Man, I'm looking forward to the fights in that whole movie because the love scene was just it was so cringy,
Yeah.
And that that famous meme with him and
With
his
his
face that
laughing.
he's making when he's stopping the train. No, when he's stopping the
Oh,
train,
okay, yeah.
he's like, "Ugh," like he's taking a giant poo.
I was thinking of the editor with him laughing for the advanced payment.
Oh yeah. The girl in there, that's not Rachel McAdams. The other one, Elizabeth something, right? She's in that too. She just played that very small role.
Was that the receptionist?
Yeah, the receptionist. What's her name? Elizabeth Banks.
You got me there. I
It's
know.
either I
I
always
know
get those
she
two
looked
confused.
familiar, but I don't know who she is.
Oh man, she's in a lot of movies, a lot of good movies too. She's funny. But yeah, Spider-Man 2, man, was the best of that trilogy.
Okay,
Up
so
next
basically,
you've got the worst.
I'm at the climax. Now we got to go back down to shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, the next one is it just
Okay, so
Sam Raimi even admitted that he wished he could have done that one different, but he was starting to get constraints. He didn't like the script. He almost didn't even do it. Um, it just it was too ambitious.
yeah,
I think if they would have cut the Venom part out of the next one and just did the
Spoilers.
Sandman and all the other stuff. Yeah,
too
spoilers for
many
you.
too many villains in Spider-Man 3.
He couldn't. Yeah, the story just couldn't hold it.
Okay,
But
so
you'll see. Just watch it, but you have to watch it because it's referenced and characters from that movie are play parts
so it doesn't
in the
follow the
multiverse.
1 and 2 where there's only like one villain in each movie.
No, I think there's like two or three
There's
in
like
that one.
3.
But if there's, to introduce a villain, you have to have a backstory, right?
You get a little
There's
bit
a
of
little
one,
bit of
Of
backstory.
like
one.
5 minutes
Of
each.
one.
Yeah, you get a little bit of backstory of one, but the problem is when you're juggling too many villains on a limited screen time, then
Then
some
it comes
villains
out.
won't get as
It
much
ends
love.
up like Joss Whedon's Justice League.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, too much. You needed to either extend that movie another hour to give you more plot, more character development, or cut one of them out and allow you to develop the others. Is what it needed.
Okay. All right. So what are you guys watching, or what did you watch?
Go ahead, Mark. What'd you got?
I've been watching The Walking Dead. I went back to it. Me and Shelby have been watching it. I think we just got into season 9. So a big gripe that I have about The Walking Dead, especially when they introduced Negan and the group trying to push back against Negan, is they get all of these opportunities to kill Negan, and none of them ever take it. They're always like Negan straight up just like comes out of the sanctuary, when everybody's armed and all that, when they pull in the cars with the armor and all that shit on it, and you got all these shooters, and Negan just walks out the fucking door in the sanctuary. Hey, look, I'm right here, and nobody takes the fucking shot. Nobody, like if they think that he's that bad of a guy, and he killed their friends and all this shit in cold blood, it's like, then why the fuck is he still alive?
That's the whole show. Like, I like the show, but I stopped probably after the first season with Negan. Well, actually, I stopped before then, and then I went back to it again. Finished out a season, watched the next one, then stopped. After the next season came out, I went back again. Like there's a lot of while you're watching it, there's a lot of filler, downtime filler,
Yeah.
which the comic books don't have that, man. Like I have every issue of The Walking Dead. I have the compendiums with all of
Yeah.
them, and even Jen like read through them all. And we're watching the show, and we're like, "Holy shit!" There's a whole season on them like farming and planning
Yeah.
and planning an attack for a whole season, and then at the very end of the last episode, they start the attack, and then they're like, "Oh shit! Now I got to wait another year
Are you,
Yeah,
to
to
are
see
you
see
what the
what
hell
talking about
happens."
happens.
that? Are you talking about that Alexandria compound?
It's just any of it. The prison took too
Yeah.
long, with the governor. Like they drag things out a lot, and then they don't go back to finish story plots. They don't. There's a lot of stuff that just drags on, and I get bored with it. Like I love
Yeah.
the universe, I love the
That's
characters, but
exactly why I stopped watching it.
you guys are fucking up and making mistakes. Like yeah, that part with Negan, man, I'd have 10 people with rifles, and I'd be like, all right, As soon as he says one word, first word he opens his
Right.
mouth to
Then
when he
the
walks
back of
in, I
his
want
head just
every one of you to
explodes.
fire a
Yeah,
shot.
his face explodes out of the
Everyone.
back of his head. Yeah, and so that's the thing.
1 out of 50 is not going to miss. Somebody just take a shot.
Right, and that's the thing. Like I said, like during that scene when they actually do, go to start to raid the compound, they've got all these people there, behind these plate armored cars and all this shit, and they all have weapons. They go through these whole episodes of them gathering weapons from other settlements and shit like that, and they're all lined up there, and Negan walks out with his fucking lieutenants and shit, and Rick is there, they're all there, Rosita's there, you know, they all fucking hate him, they all want him dead because of what he did to their friends, and they just let him fucking
But
talk his shit.
nobody does anything.
Like what did you guys come here to do? You guys came here to kill Negan, right? You guys came here to, take down the sanctuary, and you never fucking do it.
Yeah, man, like even in the comic books, right? Like it's very different. 'Cause in the comic books, the governor cuts off Rick's hand, right? And that's like at the
Yeah,
beginning
that's early
of the
on in the
series.
series. Yeah, because I remember that from
That's like very
reading the
beginning.
the compendiums
There's
when you let me borrow them.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of differences, and I get it. I understand, but like Carl's alive in the comics, right?
But the amount
Uh,
the
Yeah.
amount of filler that they have in the show, you can explain everything that's in the comic books.
well, and then you got the other shows. You have the
The
Fear of the
Fear of the
Walking
Walking
Dead. You have
Dead.
that
Yeah.
other one.
The Walking
In the
Dead Beyond or whatever.
if it was me, what I would have done is I would have just cut the filler part, folded in some of these other shows, and just have other stories of other areas of the country and other things going
All
on.
killer, no
Just introduce
filler.
more characters. Just introduce more characters, and then you can go back and forth.
There are some interesting characters that did get introduced after the Negan thing. Like I don't know if you got to Ezekiel yet in the series, but Ezekiel's a
Yeah,
pretty
and you
good
got the
character.
alpha and beta and all those. So
And even the
that stuff's
even
pretty
the
crazy.
whatchamacallit, the people that live in the dump. That's a pretty interesting community too. I'd like to maybe see some expanse on like their story and how they came to be like that.
Yeah, Pollyanna McIntosh. She was the lead character there.
Yeah.
All right. Nick, what are you watching?
Well, I watched for this week. I went back and I watched Immortals from 2011. It was released on 11/11/11. Right. It's directed by Tarsum Singh, who is probably most well known for directing The Cell
That's
with
with Jennifer Lawrence,
uh
isn't it? Or not
Jennifer
Jennifer.
no
Jennifer
Lopez.
Lopez. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jennifer Lopez. Yeah, and that movie, mm, that's a creepy artistic style movie. Like it just got some great visuals. Jen loves that movie. But it's starring, young Henry Cavill, Stephen Dorff, Luke Evans, John Hurt, Isabel Lucas, Mickey Rourke as Hyperion, and you got Mark Margolis, which is the old man from Breaking Bad, the one that doesn't talk, that shits himself in the wheelchair
Yeah.
from like the
Yeah.
beginning of
Yeah.
Walking Dead
That
or
guy's a
Breaking Bad.
legend too. That guy's been acting for forever.
Oh yeah. So even he's in that, right? The film had a budget of like 80 to 120 million with advertising. It made over 226 million commercially. So the big money is this movie sold so well on DVD on home media when it came out. So listen to this. I put down some notes on this because
Yeah,
it was
well, before you go through that, I think that also it came off of the success of 300 and Zack
300.
Snyder, and like from what I remember from Immortals, um, was that it had a very similar visual aesthetic to 300 as well.
Yeah, I had that same kind of color palette, the golds and bronzish color. And it had the slow motion action scenes. But what's really cool is what they did was the gods move faster than humans. So they shot when the gods are fighting.
So there's no Xerxes moment.
No, when the gods are fighting, they speed the camera up to 1,000 frames a second while the humans are fighting. So all you see is them blurs spinning around and going fast around the humans that are fighting. And it was really cool how they did that. Home media, right? DVD. So we're talking 2011. So at that point, Blu-ray still has not taken off. They sold 650,000 DVDs in its first week of sales. Blu-ray, right? So Blu-ray was there, but it still wasn't king. But in this case, they sold 927,000 Blu-rays in its first week of release. And then it sold another 100,000 3D Blu-rays in its first week. I mean, that's a lot of money. So they made 40, 60, 70, $72 million in home releases in its first week. That's more than it made domestically in the theater.
Yeah.
So that means it was enough for people to talk about it and get people interested in seeing it.
Yeah.
It follows Theseus, right? Which they kind of changed the story on this, right? Because Theseus used to be the son of Poseidon in Greek mythology.
Yeah.
But in this one, it's kind of hinted that he's the son of Zeus a little
yeah.
bit. It takes place, it follows the 12 Olympians who imprison the Titans underneath Mount Tartarus. The imagery in this, when you watch it, Keith, did you get a chance to watch it?
No, I've been too focused on Spider-Man.
All right. Well, you need to watch this movie, man, because the imagery, like with all the Titans, right? They're all painted up. They're locked in that box. Their mouth is like stuck on rebar, like poles, and it has some crazy fucking imagery. And what it is it's Theseus he's been tasked by Zeus to take down Hyperion, which is played by Mickey Rourke. Mickey Rourke is trying to find this magic bow, the Epirus bow, uh, to release the Titans from Tartarus. Right? He's trying to get them out so he can take over the world essentially. And just like Clash of the Titans, right? The human is tasked to go stop this. It's pretty crazy. Luke Evans plays Zeus. It's just got some crazy imagery. Like, do you remember that scene where Poseidon dives off of Olympus to save them in the boat? You remember that, Mark?
No, I haven't. I mean, I haven't seen Immortals since it came out back in 2011.
Oh man, he dives off of Mount Olympus and just like a freaking comet straight into the ocean and creates this tidal wave to help them out, right? It's just the imagery that they have in it and the vision they have of the gods, right? They don't look like your traditional like big beards, old
No,
men. Like,
yeah, I do remember that. They looked a lot different from what you would think the Greek gods would look like.
yeah, they're like Poseidon. Actually, the guy who played Poseidon, his name is Kellen Lutz. You might remember him from he played Hercules in the 2014 The Legend of Hercules. Um, he's probably most known as playing Emmett Cullen in the Twilight series. But my first place where I remember him from was as a Corporal Lilly from Generation Kill with
Yeah,
Alexander
yeah,
Skarsgård. He was in Expendables 3. He was in Nightmare on Elm Street, the reboot in 2010. Like he's one of those actors that you like look him up on IMDb and you're like, oh shit, I've seen that, I've seen that, I've seen that, I've seen that, and you're like, he's been in all of them, but he just doesn't have that home name that people recognize. But he's been in everything. Anyway, he plays Poseidon, and like it's just he's all buff, right? They're not bearded, they're all clean shaven, but he's got this like helmet on that looks like a squid or something. And it's just weird that their take on it and the imagery of the gods was really cool. And of course shit goes down. Hyperion frees the Titans. So at which point the gods have to come down from Olympus to fight the Titans to back. And what's crazy about this story was that they all die. All the gods die
yeah.
except for
It's like a
Zeus.
Macbeth.
Yeah, I mean the gods, like all of them, they all go down. Athena, Ares, Apollo, like all of them, they all get killed except for Zeus and Poseidon, which If I remember correctly, I think Poseidon's like mortally wounded or something. Like he's like dying.
How can a god be mortally wounded? He's not mortal.
Like, he's dying from the Titans. I think were the only things, or other gods could kill
Okay.
them. Because there's actually a scene in there where Zeus commands them not to interfere with the mortals with this adventure that they're on. Even though Zeus is the one who told Theseus to go, he said, "You'll get no help from the gods. We need to see and believe in mankind, because if you can't do it, then we're just going to kill you all," type
Yeah.
thing. One of the, I think it's Ares or somebody, Zeus, and helps out Theseus, and he straight up like kills him. Zeus kills him right there on the spot for interfering. He warns him. He says, "Hey, I'm going to kill you if you interfere in humankind. You know, they need to have free will and be able to make their own choices." And so it was a badass movie, man. It's brutal. There's a castration scene in it. I don't know if you remember that, Mark, but
No, I don't remember
King
that.
Hyperion, one of the guys turns on his own people and rats them out to gain favor from Hyperion. And King Hyperion's like, "Well, thanks for that." He's like, "But I can't allow a coward to breed in my, new world order, my new world." So he castrates them so he can't breed more cowards. That's my pick. One of the, my thoughts on it, the action, the combat, the visual storytelling, like it was like a continuation of 300, right? Um, the only downside was the story. It falls in line with the same type of thing of like Clash of the Titans remake and stuff like that, where you end up going to all these big action
Yeah.
scenes and all these big events, and there's no
Well, the story's
the
all the
plot.
same. Yeah, the plot's gonna all be the same. It follows that same formula.
Exactly. We got to go here to do this, and then the next scene they're there, and we got to go here to do this. I'm not going to explain to you why I need to go there, but I got to go there to do a thing and get something, and then the next scene they're there, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I got to get this." Like it just, I mean, it was cool, right? Like there's the fight with the Minotaur. Like they had all these really badass scenes, lacking story. They relied more on the visuals and the look and the action than plot development and character
Yeah.
development.
Okay. Well, you guys all know I got Spider-Man 3 coming up for next week. What do you guys
Oh,
got?
we can't wait.
Oh man. I'm gonna get more excited as the Spider-Mans progress, I'm sure.
Maybe.
Yeah, the Andrew Garfield ones I enjoyed. I liked his Garfield. I liked
It's
his
Garfield.
Spider-Man.
You just have an orange cat flying through the city.
Garfield web
Um,
slinging.
Right.
n Next week I'm watching Nightmare Alley by Guillermo del Toro. Um, that's his new movie, just came out. It stars Bradley Cooper, Kate Blanchett, Toni Collette, Willem Dafoe, Richard Jenkins, Rooney Mara, Ron Perlman. Like it's got this massive cast.
Okay. All right. Mark, what you got?
We'll
And
have to get in some news as well for next week's podcast.
What did you just say?
I said we'll have to get in some news as well, some nerdy geeky news as well for next week's podcast.
Okay.
comic book wise, coming out, I think next week, if we're gonna do some news stuff, is Godzilla versus Power Rangers issue number 1 comes
What?
out next week. Yeah, dude, should be good. Have the freaking Dragon Zord fighting
Oh man.
Godzilla.
Epic.
Um,
Epic.
you've got the new Punisher debuts. So Marvel is getting away from the traditional Punisher logo because there's a lot
Oh, I
of political
saw
stuff
that.
nowadays
He's
with it.
like turning into a samurai Punisher or something like that.
Yeah, he joins the Hand, not to be confused by the Foot Clan,
Oh, from what?
by
Ninja
the
Turtles,
Ninja
right?
Turtles.
The Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, he joins the Hand, and so yeah, it's like more like a samurai skull. It's got horns on
It
it,
looks
like a
kind of like
demon.
Mandalorian almost.
Well, I mean, it's all owned by Disney, right?
Mhm.
And then
It could be a shared universe.
they're getting rid of the guns too, and he's swapping it out
For
for
samurai swords.
swords. Yeah, so I mean,
So let's go from this ultimate badass of the traditional Punisher that you and I know, and let's switch it for what do they call that? Race appropriation, to where he becomes a samurai.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
yeah. Not a great look.
Yeah. I don't expect it to probably last too long because it's in like almost like a what if type story that they're doing it,
Yeah.
because they just launched another series of Punisher. That issue 1 just came out, or 2 of traditional Punisher. So I think they're kind of testing the waters, because they, being owned by Disney, we know how they are with all of the, the environment of, strong white males, women's heroes, guns, all that stuff. We know Disney. We know what they're doing. Look what they did to Star Wars, right? They don't listen to fans.
I
They
don't
don't
know.
follow
What did they
fans.
do to Star Wars, Nick?
They neutered the shit out of it.
Racist. You sexist, racist.
They've publicly announced, Kathleen Kennedy, she said that. She's like, the
Yeah.
days of strong white males are over. And it's like, well, hold on. You're telling the story of a family that started in the 70s.
Yeah.
And you're just going to like cut them out of the story?
Right.
It is what it is. You can complain all day, but it's not going to go anywhere because they've got billions of dollars and it's their property and they can do what they want with it.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what they're doing to Punisher. And like I said, I don't think it's going to last long because it's the only people that are going to buy it are going to be people like me that's a comic book collector that's going to buy it, grade it, put it away. I won't read it. I don't care. But it's going to be the first issue with the new suit, so I want it for the collection type thing.
Yeah.
It's other than that, it's not going to have the sales to maintain. People don't want the Punisher running around with swords.
I mean, that's an iconic character. Everybody already kind of, they have an expectation about that character, and if you stray too far from people's expectation of that character, then there might be some people that like it, but most are going to be like, well, this isn't true to this character.
Exactly. It's people know what the Punisher is. It's violence. It's a brooding lead guy. They can change the story, but don't make it Frank Castle. You want a new Punisher? Give me a new person.
Right. I mean, they did it with Punisher 2099.
Whatever name of the week you want, right? Give me a Malcolm McDowell that has some tragic thing happen and he becomes the Punisher in his world. Give it if they want to make him a samurai and put him in there, then have it be a Japanese or an Asian guy that becomes that Punisher, right? With his logo. Like, don't make it Frank Castle.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like I said, like they did it with 2099 Punisher. His name was Jake Gallows.
Spider-Man, right? They wanted to create a new Spider-Man that does things differently. So they created that Ben Reilly Spider clone.
Yeah,
the clone
Spider,
of Peter Parker, right? And he becomes the Scarlet Spider. So, I mean, just do that. Create a new one. Don't make it the same one.
Yep.
What else you got for news?
Well, that's it for me.
And that's it for me. So I guess that's it for today's podcast. A pop culture kick.
Yep. Hit me up at PCK_Keith. This is where you guys say yours too.
Oh yeah, hit me up on Facebook or something. Mark Becker II, or don't. That's cool.
All right, and you can find me on Twitter at PCK_Nickzilla. And that's it. Thanks for the show. Have a terrible day.
We'll see you guys next week.
Awful day.
In the great words of the Anchorman, stay classy.
San Diego, a whale's vagina.
What is the most unattractive male first name in the English language?
What you just said,
Keith,
is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Most of all, fuck you!
That's all, folks.